Minister of Finance Wale Edun has outlined Nigeria's unique inflation challenges, linking them to high import dependency and a large informal economy. Speaking at the National Economic Council on Tuesday, Edun contrasted Nigeria's inflation struggles with advanced economies, which have achieved inflation control through balanced economic policies. Edun highlighted measures aimed at easing economic pressures on Nigerians, including subsidy removal and foreign exchange reforms. He noted that the relocated subsidy funds, once $15 to $20 billion annual expense, are now directed towards critical social and infrastructure projects. The minister also introduced policies to stabilize petroleum prices by requiring local refineries to purchase crude oil in naira, which has generated a monthly fiscal boost of about 700 billion naira for national projects. Welfare programs include minimum wage increases, direct financial aid, and wage support for low-income workers with biometric verification, ensuring accurate disbursement to over 5 million households. For that, the administration has rolled out support for education and small businesses. A student loan program has provided over 90 billion naira to help students manage expenses, while nearly 50 billion naira in grants and low-interest loans have been allocated to boost SMEs. It also revealed a 9-month foreign exchange repatriation program to strengthen reserves by integrating offshore dollars into formal economy without penalty. Edun underscored the government's focus on sustainable growth, expressing optimism that reforms and targeted interventions will steer Nigeria towards economic stability. How do you see this analysis of all of the things, almost, or should I say some of the things that have been done in Nigeria and how they have gotten to affect the economy?
Was he talking to himself? Because for all I care, what he's doing is self-appraisal. You cannot be a judge and jury in your own case. You cannot appraise yourself. There must be an independent body to assess you, appraise, and score you. What he just did is tantamount to self-appraisal, blowing his own trumpet, which doesn't make any sense. Because what he's saying and what we have on ground are two different things.
Really?
Of course.
But he talked about the monies gotten from subsidy removal being channeled into social welfare and all of that.
So have you gotten any social welfare? Or do you know who has gotten? or are there people who have come out to say, okay, we have gotten? So for me, what he just did is self-appraisal. And it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work anywhere. Okay, talking about projects, infrastructure, which infrastructural project or development have they been able to carry out since May 29th last year to today? Even the coastal highway, where, have you seen, where are they starting from?
What about the railway?
The railway.
We had that completed now.
We've completed the railway.
We had that completed in the FCT, and we saw, even though some people said it was laughable and all of that, but you know, we are always of the opinion that when things are done, you should acknowledge that they are being done.
The policies of this administration, like I always say, they are ill-timed.
But so you don't have a problem with the policy. It's the timing.
It's the timing. They are ill-timed, and if you have a good intention at the wrong time, it doesn't make any sense.
Which of the policies are you referring to?
First, the removal of subsidy was a very strong and grievous mistake. And since the removal of subsidy till today, the prices of goods and services have never remained the same. It's the floating of the forex also, because we have an economy that is import-driven. We don't have any economy that is productive-based. We virtually buy everything outside. Our local industries, they are not even, the cost of production is even stifling the local production of goods and services. So if you look at it technically or rationally, there are certain steps or certain policies they made which has really increased the prices of goods and services in this country. Between May 29th last year and today, can you tell me how many percent inflation rate or how many percent prices of goods and services has gone up?
If we start making calculations of how many percent, it will shock you and shock everybody who is listening.
Because virtually we are the ones now working for them.
Sometimes when I go back, not like we're just sitting down to complain about issues happening, but sometimes when we go back to the prices of certain products just few months ago, and by few months ago, maybe a year ago, right? You'd notice 300% increase. And you'd wonder how this happened within a short period.
For fuel that we were buying
exactly where I was going.
Less than 200 or even 200 naira, and we're buying nearly 1,314 per liter.
So let's talk about...
That's how many percent increase?
When we talk about the increase in prices of goods and services, we definitely would point at local production, right? Local production. Even people have been talking about local production. We have local production now. But then, what is the situation? We still have increased, the price is still up there. More than what
the
a lot
local
of us
production
expected.
is a monopolized local production. And for business to thrive, there must be healthy competition. That's the only thing that will make business thrive. That's the only thing that will liberalize prices. That's the only thing that will also ensure availability of products when you have options of where to buy. If the market or the business is monopolized, we're still going back to the same old story.
The House of Representatives was yesterday during plenary also talked about, according to a report yesterday, talked about the government approving artisanal refineries as a way of helping, cushioning the effect of the fuel price, dropping the price of fuel currently, when we're looking at steps that should be taken, especially when you made reference to hunger earlier. What's your thought on that?
Artisanal refinery is something that we must look into. It's something that the government and the people must sit down and embrace. Why I say it must be embraced, it's for the good of the product and the people. If we have artisanal refineries in certain places, you discover that first, the rural economy of that place where that business is being done will pick up. And once the product is available next door to you or very close to you, cost of transportation will also reduce to get the product. You discover now that you have options and there's healthy competition. Take a look at the telecommunication industry in this Nigeria. When it was in the hands of government alone, telephone was for the rich. It was a status symbol. It became a bragging right if you don't have it. And I could beat my chest and tell you that in a particular street, you might not see a telephone. Maybe within a community, people who own telephone lines, as are there, wouldn't be more than 4 or 5 in a big, that's in town, not even in the village, not even in the village. In town, you could count barely few households that had access to nighttime line those days. Then the year 2000, when they gave contract to CDMA, some other companies came up before the catalyst, the springboard that caused serious growth in the telecommunication in this GSM license by Obasanjo. And when the first 2 companies came up, they gave us the impression that per second billing was not possible. But by the time the indigenous company, the third one, came in, they came in with per second billing. Costs of this dropped. Today, you see what's happening in the telecommunication industry. Telephone, it's no longer for the rich. It's now something that is a necessity. You see some people today, they have 3, 4 phones. Why? Because of healthy competition. So for me, they must give out licenses to willing investors who have what it takes to establish refineries. Even if it's the one that is refining 2,000 or 3,000 barrels per day, even 1,000, give them license at the appropriate place.
Well, let's also look at...
And also know that for each refining process, it's not just fuel alone. There are other byproducts that follows the refining stage. So, for me, let's just...
A lot to be gotten from that. I want to talk about production now, since he has talked about inflation being worsened because we're depending on importation. Let's talk about our production here in Nigeria, local production and manufacturing companies. We've realized and noticed that some of these companies import even their raw materials that they use for production. And sometimes you notice that some of these raw materials can be produced here in Nigeria. So you begin to ask, if we can produce this here, why are we importing it? It brings us back to what the government is doing with fuel. Us having crude oil, even though that's a raw material, but then we're importing, that's even on the other side, importing the finished product.
Yes.
Yes, we have companies that import these raw materials, and they import it at, a very high rate.
Going back to what I said earlier, that every refining stage has so many products that comes out of it. So if this refining of petroleum product is taking place here, you discover that so many byproducts will be sent to the petrochemical. Some will be sent to Indorama. And before you know what is happening, the fertilizer producing company, before you know what's happening, we have so many byproducts that will also boost local production. But because we export crude oil, after exporting crude oil, they refine it there and only bring fuel, kerosene, and diesel
so
with
every other thing that would have been gotten gone.